Both chambers of the U.S. Congress have now given final approval to Donald Trump's request to cut $9 billion in federal spending. The plan includes deep reductions to public broadcasting and foreign aid. While $9 billion sounds like a major figure, it would have a tiny impact on the nation's rising debt, but could have major ramifications for the targeted institutions. This legislation moving forward despite some concern from Democrats, obviously, but also among Trump's fellow Republicans. For more, let's speak to our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Hello to you. Doug, most of these Republicans, though, supporting these cuts. They and Donald Trump say this is a major victory and a test run for things to come.
Yeah, this is just an appetizer. If Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans have their way, they promise that this bill, the passage of this bill with its $9 billion in cuts, will just be the first of many requests for similar government program slashing across the board. So this is the first car in a train, as Donald Trump and the Republicans hope, of government downsizing, right? So this is the sneak preview of what is to come. And like you said, $9 billion is a drop in the ocean in the realm of the U.S., in total budget of trillions of dollars. But it does hit specifically certain programs. I think it is important to note here, Will, that while, yes, it had broad support across the Republican Party. And yes, most Republicans have marched in lockstep with Donald Trump and his agenda. There were noticeable points of opposition, both in the Senate, which passed the bill very narrowly, really, yesterday, Wednesday into Thursday, by 51 to 48, but also in the House, which also was a modest passage. And in each case, you had a handful of Republicans joining with the entire Democratic Party in voting against a bill where they contested, in addition to the cuts to some of the programs in some states, they also contested the process by which these cuts are being made. It's a technical term called a rescission bill. And they said that there was a little bit of, if not foul play, there was a little bit of dishonesty or disingenuity in the way the administration was trying to do an end run, as they saw it, around the normal process, not giving enough detail about just how the cuts were being made. Now, across the administration, the White House vehemently denies that there was anything different in the way it went about requesting these cuts and making them than any other similar packages in the past. But you have to go back many, many years for this type of package. I think really Bill Clinton, 1999. So this is an unusual type of package. And like I said, this is just the beginning. We might be in this studio talking about this many times to come in the next few months.
Yeah, and what Congress is doing here, it's clawing back money it already approved.
Yes.
But this is sort of pointing to a battle between Congress and the president about who really controls the purse strings.
There is in the Constitution a clause. It's actually Section 8, Article 1, for constitutional scholars out there. And it essentially gives the Congress a broad purview, broad powers to adjudicate and legislate over spending issues, whether it's levying, imposing taxes, customs, so on and so forth. There's been an entire history of court case litigation in the Supreme Court itself, in which more recently, in the 1930s, the Supreme Court basically granted very broad authority or recognized very broad authority inherent in the Constitution, the clause I was just talking about, for the Congress to decide how and when to open those purse strings, how and when to spend the money if it's perceived to be in the general welfare, the general public interest. It doesn't mean that it's written in stone. It doesn't mean that it's open to interpretation, but this idea that the Congress, not the executive branch, not the president of the United States, has the, quote, power of the purse, that is something that a lot of school kids in America are taught. That is something that most lawmakers in Congress believe, and they are vehemently ready to fight for it. They see this, those who are skeptical and opposed to Donald Trump's approach, see this as the president basically seizing away, grabbing away a power that is constitutionally inherently in the Congress. And they also see the Republican Party marching like zombies in lockstep, following Donald Trump in what they see as this stranglehold on the party and this sort of seizing of these spending powers, these federal spending powers that should lie with Congress.
And what are the implications going to be for foreign aid or for public broadcasters?
Yeah, well, if you're a Republican, there's been, like I said, broad Republican support for many years, not just under Donald Trump. They see foreign aid spending as being too vast. The scope of it is well beyond when they say what it should be, whether we're talking even food aid, disease prevention programs. In the case of public broadcasting, it becomes more ideological and partisan. Republicans have long accused public broadcasters, both radio and TV broadcasters, of having a politically liberal bias, something that the broadcasters themselves will vehemently deny. They say they're journalists doing their job, and if the Republicans don't happen to like the journalism they're doing, that's not the fault of the journalists themselves. The actual impact on the two biggest public broadcasters, NPR, PBS, is actually going to be relatively minor. Their actual budget is not going to be that much hit. It's about $1.1 billion being clawed back for the public broadcasters. It's the local broadcasters that depend on PBS and NPR, the TV and radio counterparts of the broadcasting. They could be really hit. They could have to cut programming on the state, on the local level. So on the granular level, it could have a very big impact. In terms of foreign aid and foreign funding, we could see a lot of cutbacks for programs of food, medical assistance, water, sanitation for a lot of foreigners in troubled areas fleeing their homelands because of conflict. Also, aid being revoked by USAID, which has been shut down now, for programs that were to help people in natural disaster or conflict zones with things like water and medicine and health care and basic food supplies and security. These are programs, like I said, which are being cut. Some critics of these cuts say that hundreds of thousands, if not even millions of lives that people could actually die as a result of these cuts. Can you empirically prove that? No. But this is what aid organizations who have run these programs say is going to happen as a result of these programs being rescinded by the United States, which always projected its soft power by way of helping the rest of the world in these areas.
All right, Doug, thank you very much. Douglas Herbert, our international affairs commentator.